Hi, we are the Community Safety in Durham Project Group 27. I'm Sadie, and my group member for this project is Eric. Our project is in collaboration with the Durham Community Safety Department, which is a recent initiative that launched in June of 2022. The Community Safety Department was established to improve public safety by sending unarmed officers and mental health professionals to respond to certain 911 calls. The department's responsibilities include taking calls related to mental health and behavioral crises, including cases of suicide threat, panhandling, and trespassing. We are partnering with the Community Safety Department to geographically visualize 911 calls in Durham, as well as different demographic attributes of residents in Durham. The department wants to ensure that they are working in areas that would benefit most from their services. In terms of data, we downloaded demographic data from the U.S. Census Bureau for specific attributes like race, income, age, and ethnicity. These datasets were from the 2010 and 2020 census, split into census blocks. We used the 911 calls for service data from the Durham Police Department from the years 2006 to 2021. Lastly, we downloaded a shapefile of the police beats of Durham, which are geographic areas the police department is divided into. Our visualizations were produced using QGIS and GeoPandas in Python.
We were first interested in observing the distribution of 911 calls, looking at areas with high concentrations of calls, and finding the call density through calculating the number of calls per person in each police beat. Our first use of demographic data from the U.S. Census Bureau came in the form of creating a map of the calls per person. We did this by calculating the population for each beat, finding the number of calls relative to a beat's population, and then mapping that on a map of Durham and on just the beats that DCSD works in. This process was also done for each individual type of call that DCSD works with. We found a much higher rate of calls per person in downtown Durham. Another trend we were interested in seeing was how each type of call has changed over the years. In these two line plots, you can see how both the number of suicide threat calls as well as crisis calls has risen over the years, with both type of calls experiencing a strange but sudden drop in 2020.
The Durham Community Safety Department wants to make sure they are reaching communities of Durham that are historically underrepresented and under-resourced. We were able to provide the department with demographic information by police beats so that they consider which beats they want to expand into in the future.
Our process for mapping these demographic data sets started with downloading the necessary data from the U.S. Census Bureau. We then merged the demographic data into the police beat shapefile to obtain a combined dataset that used police beat geographies rather than the census blocks. From there, we grouped the data by police beat and created new variables for analysis. Lastly, we created choropleth maps to display these new variables for each demographic by police beat.
These are visualizations of single-parent household data from the U.S. Census Bureau from 2010. As you can see from the map on the left, the Community Safety Department is currently working in beats that have higher proportions of single-parent households in comparison to the rest of the beats in Durham. Another significant demographic attribute the Community Safety Department wanted us to look into was the racial composition of each police beat. Though the department is currently working in police beats with higher proportions of Black residents, we also noted that beats 413 and 412 had the highest proportion of Black residents overall. These are beats that the department can consider as they begin to work in more beats in the future.
In conclusion, we were able to produce useful visualizations for the DCSD to use. Since the department is new, the data they have is constantly changing. A future collaboration with the DCSD would use the data they are currently collecting to assist them with future endeavors. Possible directions this project could take might include creating multiple regression models to find predictors of call counts in each beat, or using 911 call audio transcripts to analyze patterns in calls.